Light show in here. What's going on? It's just it's part of the thing, it's okay. Show must go on, for sure. So just to sort of take you on through the process, while we're very much forward thinkers and we're very sort of keep our ears and eyes open and to the ground with regards to new technologies, you know, there's nothing that beats good old tracing paper and some sketching to sort of get your ideas out there and to start to explore. So sort of taking you through this very sort of awkward spacing of this sort of rather small project, which is an office space in Dubai that overlooks one of Zaharna's projects. So we were privileged enough to be approached for this. And the client sort of kept driving the agenda of saying, we want the space to really feel like it's an outdoor space, and to start blurring the lines of what is inside and what is outside, and really to focus on the materiality that is used within the space. We've later found out that the project is actually a sales office, and the reason for sort of blurring the lines and really paying attention to the materiality and the finishes actually had quickly become the highlight and the focal point of the project. The reason being is that the project is in fact, as I had said, a small project that then would dictate and set the tone and the language for a micro development which was being built in the region as well, one of its kind. We had to really focus on materiality, and we had to really sort of highlight the delta light. And of course, you know, sort of to give you the simplified version of it, as you know, working within an interior space, you have to also comply with the regulations and the design guidelines of the office building that you're working in. So we needed to work with the correct color temperatures and the light temperatures in order to give a homogeneous and a uniform lighting elevation from the street level into the building. So we couldn't come in and introduce our own color temperatures and our lighting temperatures. At the same time, we wanted to have a sort of a ceremonial entrance, and we wanted the lighting to accentuate and highlight the natural materials that we're using in the project, while at the same time being as discreet as possible. So some of the details that we decided to do then is to apply natural stones on the floors to dictate what is inside and what is outside. And then depending on whether the meeting room, whether you're in a meeting room or sitting outside of the meeting room in the sort of open plan working space, we decided to use natural oak timber panels, and became a sort of very much a homey, cozy sort of feel. And walking into the space, you wouldn't necessarily feel that you are in a sales office. So once we had to discover that this is a sales office, we could quickly realize that there is a bigger project to be sort of developed as we go around. This sales office then had brought light to what was essentially TZ Architects' biggest and most important project at the time. For the same client, then we were sort of reappointed to do Koa Canvas, and Koa Canvas is the first of its kind mixed-use development in Dubai, in the region, that highlights and focuses on the programs of usage. So there's co-working spaces for the creative industry in Dubai. There are, of course, facilities like a couple of swimming pools, gymnasiums, and of course residences that span from one bedrooms or studios that go up to penthouse level living spaces. And this project is, of course, standing alone and away from the city, so we had the desert environment to work with, introducing schools, or rather daycare centers, a large swimming pool, recreational facilities, and then phase A and phase B, which includes co-working spaces as well as living units. So it's a very sort of non-typical approach to the architecture that is of the region, that is sort of very common and very familiar in a city like Dubai. However, and for that reason, we decided to approach it with a sort of unorthodox approach, in the sense that we wanted to be architects to implement thermally modified tulip wood as an external cladding at this scale in the region. So of course, while taking into consideration the footprint, the carbon footprint, this has ultimately become a much more sustainable architecture than what would typically be constructed in this environment. We, of course, started to apply natural finishes such as quartzite stone to the facade, of course, increasing the efficiency as such. And in order to do that, in order to sort of complement the architecture without sort of letting it sort of speak and yell and be too loud about it, we worked closely with Delta Light in order to provide an interesting lighting solution that would then accentuate and highlight the specific moments and the specific areas within the architecture that then communicates the type of materials and the subtlety of the project altogether on its own. So the end result, I would say, is quite successful, quite interesting, and it stands alone. We're almost completed in this project. It's almost finished, and of course, the application of delta lights, as you see. And again, in the region, it's gained a lot of attention and a lot of recognition for sort of being a project that is quite unique. This is an overview of the master plan altogether. The other sort of segment of this project is Block C. So Block C is phase 2 of the project, and this is a continuation of the story again, where the client has decided to add yet another level, another program into the master plan, which is to introduce a boutique hotel. So these developers, of course, were always driven by forward-thinking, highly intelligent clients that are always helping us sort of come up with new interesting solutions to the architecture and new interesting solutions about how to approach architecture in an environment such as Dubai. So we're working with extreme sunlight, we're working with extreme heat, dust, humidity, and the likes of. And just like all the rest of our clients, we wanted to really, well, we were briefed to let the building sort of age gracefully and age beautifully. So the process was that we were going to use natural materials to highlight and to line all of the interior spaces that then also translate into the architecture. So again, just taking you through the early stages of conception of this project, and again, sort of to continue the story for Canvas Phase 2. Again, some of our regional projects, again, working at different scales. We managed to attract a very interesting sort of team, or very interesting, of course, team of architects and designers, but at the same time, we started to fall under the radar of some of our clients, one of whom is actually here, in fact, and sort of taking it to another level. We were approached by one of the sort of the royals in the UAE in order to design 3 residences for them. And I have to be honest with you, at the beginning of this project, we weren't necessarily too certain about how to approach a project where we were faced with hectares and hectares of desert landscape, pure desert landscape, untouched. And this is actually our first site visit, looking over a drone. We have some of our team members speaking to the client, and me taking a panicked call in the distance. Of course, this provided us with a very sort of interesting challenge, because levels of privacy are always extremely important in the Middle East. We never wanted to compromise that for the client. They wanted to feel free and relaxed and comfortable in their homes, while at the same time allowing natural light to enter and avoiding any overheating of the architecture or the interior spaces. At the same time, they wanted their family members to feel comfortable and happy to walk around their premises without any sort of levels of privacy being completely compromised. So quickly we took on the sort of the study of the interior architecture as well as the architecture, because we needed it to relate to the local context, so very regional architecture by use of natural materials, the right color palettes, the right tones, while at the same time allowing natural light in and without compromising any levels of privacy. So very quick sort of perspectives that give you an impression about ways in which we are drawing in light, and at the same time connecting with the views, where the views were always sort of opening out into the landscape, while at the same time making sure that in that vista, none of the other residences were angled in a way that would compromise. The lighting's amazing. I love it. Cool. It's a good effect. I like it.
We try to use as much as possible.
Speaking of course, Delta Light had come in, and I think absolutely sort of took the project to a new level, because we had a difficult time sort of communicating the architectural gestures in the building. And so we worked very closely with the Delta Light's design team in order to make sure that actually the experience from inside and outside was always, or was never compromised, and also thinking about ways in which we can highlight some architectural components, because this particular client, unlike many, is actually fully focused on ensuring that the spaces are not overlit, because they like to have their sleep cycle sort of in line with the sun, sort of the sun cycle. So when the sun goes down, they're in bed, and the sun goes up, they're awake, which is an interesting way to live. However, I believe it's one of the things that we're studied very, very intensely with regards to how we would like the project. And of course, as sort of a very early perspective, because we can't share too much at this stage, of the architecture and the architectural type that ensures that it's fully in line with the client brief, if wherever possible. most important projects actually, currently on the construction site. This particular project is very interesting because again, we've been approached by a very sort of young, affluent, forward-thinking developer who was looking to challenge the status quo, the way that people live in the region, and in particular in Dubai. And in doing so, they found that the best way to approach the architecture or the interior architecture is to offer a studio space living, whereby space is taken to its highest level of efficiency, making sure that every square millimeter or every square meter is used and multifunctional. And we've devised a building of G+8 floors of studio units that are no larger than 30 square meters, fully consolidated and compromised. But the most interesting part, and perhaps this happens a lot more in Europe, but less so in the Middle East, is that we had to work in order to approach municipality and ensure that we get the approvals to put all of our parking underground in order to make sure that the oldest part of Dubai, where this building sits, will have a food market and a sort of a public space that continues from the building. And the way we approached that very conceptually early on is that we wanted to provide flexibility in our architecture. So we had devised the grid that then continues throughout the rest of the building. And in doing so, the grid would then determine and define the ground floor market, which is in fact a blurred line between the client giving their private space back to the public, and then the public being able to sort of walk back in and engage with the building, and then sort of create this interactive conversation between residents and non-residents. So through that, we've devised moving screens that then allow us to pivot and rotate and create these outdoor spaces where market stalls can be set up, where you can have sort of concept markets set up and sort of engage with the street level, or vegetable markets and fruit markets and the likes of, because the city or the building, the area that the building sits in is in fact known for that. So for us to kind of reappropriate that and bring that back into the program has allowed us to for more successful architecture. And again, this project signed off and everything, ready for, well, it's in excavation at the moment. Again, work very closely with Delta Light, because in this particular area where we talked about on the public ground floor level in particular, we had to be extremely conscious about how we light the space. We wanted to make sure that because the main entrance of the building, the private entrance of the building, is recessed back, we didn't want to make it feel like it's something that is at the back of the house. And at the same time, we wanted to provide enough lighting from ground up or top down, or flexible lighting integrated into the screens that makes sure that we have that flexibility whenever we need to use it in our architecture. And of course, some early studies that we had looked at together with Delta Light, and of course some early perspectives. We couldn't give you a photorealistic rendering yet, but you get the impression of this, because this is still under wraps. And of course, just a perspective to highlight the importance of the public spaces that we are communicating in our architecture and in our work. I hope that didn't take over half an hour. So thank you very much for listening.
Okay, if anybody has any question, otherwise we proceed with the next speaker, and then we will try now to stop the light show.
I enjoyed that. Sorry.
So choose, Dieter, choose if you want switch on, switch off, or whatever. Now, this one definitely not. Okay. There's no. There's too much. So we have 7 scenes, maybe one big. Go ahead. Yeah. This one no. There's bouncing balls. Look, Dieter. Yes. Switch everything off. Okay, so we dobbiamo cambiare il computer. No.
the idea of the world. I mean, sometimes everywhere is in the project one addiction in the hand, and not a very continuous reflection by the natural condition in the different geography. You see the very special your works, the quality, attention, interior, exterior, and then there is a very sensibility for this question. And for example, this art, the installation is make understand how lights is very linked by the time, the weather, and the capacity of medium, or to make understand the different geography, the different condition, is a very important medium for the people. Also, if there is inconscience, is not very the subject of the reflection. And for this question, I would like to make understand how for us, the lights is one matter between the imaginary and the real. And this is a condition of the imaginary. For example, the first very important, imaginary is this bigger art by Olaf Edison in London. It's very interesting to understand how the first representation of the sun, the very father of the lights, is also one condition for to make understand one slow time, one modality for to change the relationship by the space. And for this question, for us, in the last year, we must to make understand how it's very important the sun, it's also very important the moon, because in this relationship by the moon and the sun, there is a relationship by the shadow, the lights, by the faces, by the discover, by the also of the dream. As first question, I would like to see one video. I try. What is the video? We developed with Gilberto Bonelli diorama, an agency based in Paris. And this is another.
The first. No.
No. So
There.
okay. Okay. Is our vision of the birth of the moon. Okay. We try with Gilberto to present this we try to present the idea of the birth of the moon, because we try also to to describe when storytelling how the idea of the night or the day is interesting, how these two elements, there is a very dialogue in the relationship by the lights, because it's possible to see the moon only in one moment of the day, and at the same time is also present by the day. This condition for us is very particular, because what is for us, the lights? Perhaps it's possible this is a condition for not to describe the space. It's also one condition where it change the body of the space in one way. There is also one condition where the air and the water also, thanks to the system of the lights, how it is in this experience, it changes the shape of the space. And you introduce in one kind of the space very different. For us, for example, how we describe in the film, the air and the water, or the sky and the sea, there is realized with the same matter, is the lights. It's a very everywhere relationship by the lights. It's possible to see this when you describe an horizon, where especially when the sea and the sky create this kind of a dialogue, also in the night, also in the day. This condition is very particular to make understand the importance of the lights in our life, in whole moment in our life. And it is also interesting how perhaps there is every way this condition by the air and the water, only condition for to create a very modulation of the lights in the space, because it is introduces one different relationship by the space. For this question, for us, it's possible to describe the project as an encounter with geography. Geography is the design of the man of the world, and a territory, a city, and a story is one sort of the beginning of the dialogue. It's very important if you try to create every way one dialogue with this condition. Often, I try to explain our experience. This is a Genoa. It's strange this picture because all people think Genoa, this is a perception of the city of the sea. It is the same vision, but not by the sea. To make understand how, for describe the city is the light, to make understand the dimension, the condition by the mountains and the city. But see, if this is a territory, in this way also this is a landscape, is the work by the man with the territory. To make understand also with the lights, the density, the relationship, the condition, and also the relationship by the city, the building, or the transformation by the landscape. And every way we make understand how the lights to create this storytelling. And to discover the architecture in the city, especially your rules in the city by the lights, by the condition, by the lights in the first plan, the second plan. And at the same time, the lights arrive in the hand, in the intimacy, in your interior space. And to make understand how the lights, it's very important to have the same feeling in the interior, not only for the condition how we explained very well before. And it's for this question, this is a white museum, very important in Genoa by Albini, to understand how in hand this picture, what is the first matter of this project? Is the lights. It's the lights that describe the relationship by interior and exterior space, by the geometry, and by the different time of the project. Because it is in the hand, also one little mirror, in one little space, is describing the idea of the imaginary. Because with this condition of the lights, it's possible every people to make understand another vision of the place. Around this film, these are all offices in Genoa. It's a condition for to create a very in the hand condition by the lights for develop an idea of the architecture of feeling. Oh, for this question, we think the architecture, the project, is a look. François Truffaut described very well this condition, always every way our eyes describe the modality to describe the reality. It's for this question in architecture, every way we try to create a different moment where it's very important to create a dimension for to see the exterior area, the reality. Bad, not bad, beauty, but it's the reality around. And the lights, they give the rules, the modality to describe one story. And it's for us, the light is a different element, it's a game for the children. So to change a color in a little space with the window in different dimensions, automatically in this space, you create a very dream condition for the children. As a very condition for to create a different space, this is a museum around in a street and create a little space for to study in the bibliothèque. And this is interesting for I can say is the light to give it this dimension very, very big. It's a rhythm, it's a sequence with the use of the mortar. It is a project in Paris with the use of the tiles in the facade. It creates one changes perception of the building every way, in every day, in different hours. So what matters is the medium for the light dialogue with the city. And the light is the pose. This is a school in Vicenza, and the colors, different geometry, is everywhere one condition for the relationship by the lights. And the end, naturally, is a relationship by the heart. This is an installation near Milano. And is one way also for to unveil and to reveal. I like this condition is not to understand every way immediately one condition, to make understand only one moment of the day. For example, this project in Milan is possible in a different condition of the lights and different moment of the day to make understand if it's one building, two buildings, change the colors. What is not possible to describe this project only one element for the office, because it's a very dialogue with the lights. And the right to make understand at the same time the light is modalities to hide or to conceal. This is a project in Rome. It's a very big project. It change every way with the sky of the Rome, with the lights of the Rome. Also, it is a little building. It's the tiles with this geometrical by diamond. It change complete direction by the lights. Every way you make understand how the very first principal elements in our project is the relationship by the lights. And for to return in art, to make understand the shape of the volume, the shape of the architecture, and sometimes the shape of this dialogue. This is Milan in Frigoriferi Milanese, or where one old, a very big white space introduce one to enter in a building very high, only with one indication of one space white with the lights or elements. So this is in Rome. Everywhere one concentration by also the artificial lights to describe one geometry regular of the space, and same time a very geometrical condition by the building our reference of this space. You make understand, I try to explain how the lights is not simply the lights. It's a very lot of things. And the whole people must understand this when he thinks of one space. It's not necessarily a lot of things, but it's very important if every way you try to looking for an relationship by the exterior space and interior space, by the condition. This picture is only one relationship by the materials and relationship by the space. But it will become a very drawings, very strong. It's not by drawings. It's the by the lights and the shoes of to have a true screen by the glass in different way. And if I can understand every way, most important of the experience of the art, we try every way this condition the relationship by the sky and the light. This is again the project of Rome. You can understand why the sky is the very reference of this project. But this is again the project of Milan. You might understand in this moment is you change the perception. But also the elements in the top is more or less a little sun. But it's only this is a Rome. A very big building everywhere with the tiles, it changes everywhere with the colors of the sky of the room. So it's very important to make understand a lot of pictures for to make understand how everywhere we try, at the same time the project in interior and exterior to have a very important condition. And you make understand how we change everywhere. Every project, if you write this diagram of the project, you create a different imaginary. It is the same building of the room. It's the same building. And we are having a condition of intimacy. This is in Le Docks de Marseille, a very big important project by the tiles to try to take the lights by the 30 meters in the hand that is a big building. And you make understand also the stone, you have a relationship with the lights, and the steel with the walls is another condition. It's a different modality to write. Again, a Milan, the wall with the light, with a big auditorium, with the tiles are very modality to create the dialogue with the lights. And again, and again, and again. Every way, it's not possible to define the architecture only with an idea of the space, only with an idea of the materials, because every part of the building, big or small, looking for everywhere one very condition. It is a little museum we finished last year. Every way to use this kind of material, you change every moment the relationship. Also, in one kind of space. So I try to describe how when you arrive in interior, the lights is not only one shows for the technical condition, only one simple project. Especially when I have a dialogue with the delta light on the factor of this element, because we must to make understand how one element of the lights introduce one continuity. And we must be is generous condition. We must have a feeling for creating the space. Because without this sensation, it's not possible to describe the project this way. Because we must to create a very challenge. It's a challenge not only for the architects, it's a challenge for the client, it's a challenge for the public, it's a challenge for the faculty, it's a change every way. Because every way is possible to arrive at this question only if you have the same feeling. Because it's possible to construct a landscape, and the landscape everywhere you create one space. And you make understand, okay, and then for us is everywhere the lights, the modality to describe this condition. And when we draw in one light, we must measure the space, the dimension, the flux, the condition, arrive in hand in the territory. So this is for us is important. This is also the project with the realized with Delta Light in Paris. But also this is important because we try to create a little ceiling, a little sky with this element with the lights. Is very important to create a very condition where the lights exist, unveil and reveal in a different moment. We create a very condition. Also, the space is very little. When this space is very little, we are creating this feeling, this sensation. It's more difficult. But in this way, it's very important to have a very relationship with the delta light, because it's not only to put one element of the light. We must create this little feeling for to describe with the other material in the space, this condition. And then we arrive to create a very dialogue, very strong with this position, and a very important project. I finish only with another video, right, to describe. Every way developed with Gilberto Diorama. It's a very important project, I must say. You might understand, I finish my words, for we understand in the video, the sky or the lights, again, is a very condition for the sky with all part of the project. So, must say, okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, just a second, we have to... Sorry, we are abusing...
No, come on.
It's your computer, right?
We're using Tarik computer. Just a small, just a short time, we are going to chart the presentation and then we'll start with the third speech.
Yes. Okay, that's great. Good.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you, Delta Light, for giving me the chance to share with all of you. One of our recent residential projects that we finally finished recent in Granada. We're going to focus on just one project, and since we take such an effort when we build residential projects for just a single client, I'd rather tell it as a story than as a more architectural approach, right? In terms of the relation with the project and the relation with the client also. We call it Aire house, and it has to do with the client. Aire is in Spanish for air. We like this definition in the things, around the things and above the ground also. Our architectural office is located in Granada, for all those of you who don't know Granada. Granada is a historical city in the south of Spain. It had an original development around two valleys and two mountains. In one of them is the palace fortress of the Alhambra. In the other mountain is the old neighborhood of the Albaicin. They're surrounded by rivers and connected historically by gates and walls. When the city started growing, it surpassed the old walls and also the rivers and start growing towards the valley, right? So historically, Granada, or the city of Granada, has had a highly relation with topography, with cross views from one side to the other, from one mountain to the other mountain, and also to the landscape, both from the mountains and also from the valley. So we received the commission to build a singular house, single family house, in the outskirts of the city of Granada, a new development outside the main roads of circulations. We actually built the new walls of the city. See how the city is pushing its growth against the highways. And then here we see the green area, which is the fertile valley, which meant the original settlement of the city of Granada. So this is something. I stepped on a wire. Okay. So this is where we are going to work in here. Very steep, with a lot of slope location, but great views, which you will see. This is the client, Armando. He presents himself as a collector of experiences. He's a very special character who enjoys every single aspects of life, right? Extreme sports, he finds a constant challenge on developing, in this case, this is an Ironman, right? He was doing, and he puts a lot of effort in everything he does in life, right? He considers everything a challenge. So he's a not conformist guy, right? We see him here putting a lot of effort on practicing sport, but also he's a very successful businessman, right? And he puts the same effort that he does on his personal life, also on his company. He has developed a new company called Aire, where he's also from Granada, just like me. These are the old bats of the Alhambra. The Mediterranean, we used to have a very deeply arranged culture of leisure, of relaxation, the old bats, Roman and Greco bats. But these ones, I think he took this romantic idea of the ruin, of how the light and the atmosphere should get into the space, right? And he created a new concept, rethinking the concept of the leisure spas, creating a company who has 11 locations all around the world. This is Sevilla, and I'll show you a few locations of his bats, right? This is Sevilla, this one is Chicago. The one in Sevilla is located in they are always located in historical settlements. This one in Chicago in an industrial building. New York also again. This is Almeria in the south of Spain. When we started our relation, he made me visit many of his bats. I had a deeply understanding of the way he understood his work. If you take into consideration that these are all thermal baths, so there will be pools with hot water, others cold water. There's a lot of complex installations within these spaces, but you don't see grills, tubes, pipes, everything. So that shows an amazing attention to detail from this guy. I'll show you before the pictures of him making this great effort to finish an Ironman, but also I show you this so that you can understand the attention to detail that he presents. He loves the idea of this raw material, of creating an environment that creates an atmosphere for his clients. And when we started talking about the project, well, this is the site, right? The site, as you see here, is a very extreme slope, only access from the upper road, but beautiful views to the city of Granada, which is in that side. If we look to the other side, we'll see the mountains and also the valley here. In our first meetings, we decided to change the brief and design a brief in terms of qualitative brief, not quantitative brief. So the aspect that he put on the table were that he wanted air, water, privacy, a playful house, stylish views, all of this. Instead of telling me, I need a house with 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, or whatever, and all of this. This is what he wanted to achieve. This is the guy that I am, so we started playing with all this. We have several regulations from the local regulations, which you see in gray the slope of the mountain. We had to create this platform in here, which we didn't want to, but the town hall required a platform in which the building should sit on top, right? The local plot, this plot had that very area, which is concentrated in ground floor and first floor, so that we had to build a basement which had all the views towards the mountain and put a lot of the program in that basement. Then we decided to create staggered boxes that move one towards the other, so that each one of the different levels create terraces and open space from first floor on top of ground floor, also ground floor on top of basement, also basement on top of the platform that recreates or that creates a serene space to move in. Those are the cross sections, and he also wanted, since his business has to do with water and baths, the house has 2 swimming pools, an outside swimming pool, but also, which is this one, but also an inside swimming pool in which he trains for his Ironmans and whatever challenges he's got at the moment, right? Sorry?
You can use, if you want to point.
Okay. That's great. Thank you. So you'll see that.
Top one.
Okay. This is the platform, basement, ground floor, first floor, and stagger boxes in here. The idea is that we start moving the boxes so that every level has a different terraces, every level has a connection with the outside. One of the main things that this is the access level, so the cars come from here. He wanted a house that had to be very private to the outside, a very small incidence towards the neighbor, but very open to the landscape. So from here we see how the city, all the connection and the views from the house to the city, how the house closes towards the street and starts opening towards the landscape. There's a landscape to Sierra Nevada, which is the mountain, privileged views to the mountains that we have in the city, and to the valley on the other side. Right? Very close to the street, very discreet to the street, and fantastic views and lots of openings to the landscape. When we started approaching the project, he wanted that same character and that same treatment that he uses on his business, and also the idea of the raw material. So we came with the decision of having all the concrete slabs of the ceilings were going to be exposed, and we needed to have all the different installations built in the concrete slab. At that point, we started working with Delta Light because they had a whole or a complete catalog of built-in pieces, which were actually, when we built them into the concrete slab, we could actually see absolutely nothing of it. So here you can see the complexity of having here, first, the window, which is cast into the concrete slab. After that, the rails for the curtains. After that, the grid for the air conditioning. After that, the lights. Again, the different lines and the complex. Here we see very simple, but the complexity of having all these lines of different things happening within the concrete slab. But also, see the fantastic views which are open here. Usually, when we work in single-family houses, the ground floor is the public area, and then we have all the private program within the top floor. Because of the slope situation here, we had to reverse this, having a ground floor, which is public uses, and then private uses split into the first floor, which will be only the master bedroom, and then the ground floor, the basement, which are all the main program there. The other bedrooms, the cinema, the gym, everything. The staircase is illuminated through a skylight and makes a vertical connection throughout the house, so that brings light into the interior part of the house, which is not facade, right? So it creates like a well of light communicating all the 3 levels of the house. Also, it happens the same with the elevator. So actually, the 2 elements that provide vertical connection within the house, also provide vertical lighting to the common areas of the house. Sorry, not everything could be Delta light, so there's some Foscarini pieces in here which were brought from the old house of Armando. That's his gym. This is why we call it Aire house. Once he opens all these big windows, air starts circulating throughout the house. We use the sheets of water of the swimming pools outside to bring fresh air through the house, through the stair, cooling also the house with natural ventilation. Well, and that's a list of the products of Delta Light that we used in there. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Of course, everybody is invited now to our studio for some finger food and drinks, and also the beats of Maurizio Bellini DJ. So thanks for participating, and see you to the session of tomorrow. It's going to be about lighting design, and we're going to have Pietro Palladino, Jason Edling, and Dinsky. Okay. Thank you.